Join Samantha and Hans at the next Macro to Micro Options Power Hour, held each Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. Registration is free. Scan this QR code or click on the link in the description.
We're here to talk about Powell coming in today and basically not playing ball with Trump. He was very much hawkish. That doesn't mean the market can't sell off aggressively and Powell comes in later for a little capitulation. But right now, the upside bet is we really need Trump to either say, I'm just kidding, or for Powell to capitulate. And chances right now are kind of hard to do that. So let's just take a look at what we've got for the market today. Lots of selling, but a little reprieve at the end of the day. SPX 5250 held, which is hysterical. Hans, get us a little bit update on what you see on market structure.
Yeah, so, well, first I see a nice comment in there. I want to thank both of you for your insights. I started hedging, it protected me. So that's terrific. Somebody saying, wonderful how much value you guys are delivering every week to your followers. So that's really, really nice.
Good to hear. Good to hear.
Yeah, so I mean, look, we've been talking about this sort of, it continues to be a long volatile type environment, one in which you have to sort of be very, very careful. I think I think we retraced about half that full sell-off, more or less. And that puts the market in kind of very lofty valuation levels if we continue along this path, which is putting growth in jeopardy and putting the analysts in a very difficult position of trying to figure out where things are supposed to be. And so I think we're going to get these lulls. This is very much part of a VIX, really part of a VIX 25 plus market, let alone 30, 35, 40 plus, where you're going to get these big moves to the upside. And I remember 2022 very, very well. We had incredibly strong bear market rallies. They made you think that everything was okay again. And here we are. The interesting thing about it is we really are seeing sort of some of the things that I'm looking at are kind of pointing to many entities having deleveraged already. So I'm looking at these vol targeting. They're down around 1 or 2 percentile in terms of their long allocation, CTA, these kinds of funds that have sort of really unloaded a lot of their long positions. And we're seeing skew extremely pricey. I'll show you guys in a moment, but just incredible skew, downside skew, put skew, and upside call skew very, very suppressed. So we really are, and even when we were sort of trading, say, 150 points higher, we were sitting in this position where structurally it really looked like the sort of cheaper, edge play was to the upside. But I think it was just a little bit too much for the market to bear at these sort of levels where, we were talking about it last week where I thought, this is a bit of a gift. I mean, you've been spot on lately. So, and I said that, yeah, this is a gift for people who didn't have a chance to hedge, who didn't have a chance to lighten up in some of these names. And I've been talking about this idea that we're going to get a big reflexive bounce in a similar way that we had the sell-off. So sell-offs, and I've seen too many of these over 30 years, sell-offs, those initial ugly sell-offs tend to be liquidity type events where everyone gets sold off. They sell good, they sell bad. There are a few tiny little pockets where people move into, but they sell pretty much everything. And the bounce back, I said, would probably be similar, very high correlation. Everything kind of bounces back before we entered into this sort of new part of this market, which I believe is starting to be a little bit more selective. So, and I said, I'm not interested in getting into the NVIDIAs, the MAG. I think it is broken. Their charts are broken. Their stories are broken. This is where you want to start to look for different things, maybe a little bit away from bits and bytes and zeros and ones and digital and into sort of the real world. And I think we're seeing a little bit of that move. Again, the last few days, over 5 or 6 days, we've seen staples do well again, utilities, even some little bit in financials, they got trounced a little bit, but discretionary, tech struggling, a very difficult market in those areas that people have really come to believe in over the last couple of years. So I think it's a very confusing market where they really do need a little bit of guidance. So that's sort of what I've been thinking. We're seeing that bifurcation happening where now the market can say, okay, we've bounced back from the end of the world. We got our bond put. We got our little bit of good news from, hey, we're going to spare semiconductors and phones, which may or may not be happening. Now we get to sort of sift through the rubble and take a look at where we really want to be if this year progresses in a way that we haven't seen in a very, very long time.
Indeed. And I have a few charts I thought might be helpful to show just because we really haven't gone very far, very fast. It seems impactful because NVIDIA, sold back down to almost 100, bounced back up at the end of the day with the whole market. But let me just show you a few things. things real quick, okay? Because we do this every week, and we have basically been talking about how we don't expect the market to do too much for the next month, right? And this was like 2 weeks after we had all this drama from April 2nd announcement of tariffs into the bond market crash on the 8th, and then the stick save by Trump and Bessent on the 9th. But we were here last week going, really, we're looking at sideways for the next few weeks as we get into the FOMC meeting. So just a little reference here. This is the April 2nd. This is E-mini, but this is liquidity. Liquidity has left the building, and until we can get back up, there is no bullish bent. So it's giving some time for the very large ranges in SPX to kind of calm down. So we really are just sitting right back up here. Look at this kind of 5,300, or in this regard for SPX, we're right back to that 52.64, which I keep talking about over and over again, right? So we're really just doing, what was it, more than 600 point week. This was another more than 600 point week. We're going to be here inside where a 5% move now is more like half of that. Used to be dramatic, and a 2.5% move is really a 5% move now. So we have to compress this down. Anyway, long story short, we really have just gone sideways.
Join Samantha and Hans at the next Macro to Micro Options Power Hour, held each Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. Registration is free. Scan this QR code or click on the link in the description. Watch the full Options Macro to Micro Power Hour episode by clicking on the video here, and subscribe to LaDucTrading YouTube channel for more content.